Hello, welcome along. It is another edition of Business Connections Live. My name's Steve Hunn and it's great to have your company. As always, boy, we've got a cracking show lined up for you tonight. You wouldn't believe the kind of information that we're going to be giving you over the next 60 minutes. This week's guest is Jim McLaughlin. He's the Managing Director of, now is it Axiall?
It's Axiall.
Axiall. Talking about generating leads and finding new business in the cash-strapped economy out there. And of course it is cash-strapped at the moment. And of course business is all about generating income. It's all about generating money. Jim, it's great to have you with us on the programme tonight.
Good to be here, Steve.
Jim, before we go any further with all of this, tell us a little bit about what you do.
What we do? We're a business development company, Steve. And we work in the business-to-business space. So what we do for our customers is we help them find new customers and we help them understand their marketplace better. And we do that through two basic services that we offer, which are lead generation and market research. So the lead generation is all about helping our clients articulate their proposition in a way that will resonate with potential clients to give them the best chance of converting those people to people who are actually prepared to pay money. And the other side of our business is market research. So we have researchers who can do various things in the market to help our clients understand their marketplace better. And by that I mean to understand what size their market is, who are the key people in the market that might be in the market to buy products, to understand who their competitors are, and to understand what kind of things they might be able to do to develop their product or service to make it a more viable selling proposition.
Do you think a lot of people get it wrong at the moment when it comes to actually going out there and promoting their business, or even understanding what they should be doing when it comes to lead generating?
I think that it's part of life that in any process that you look at, and lead generation is a business process like any other, you'll find that there are some companies that do it exceptionally well, there are some companies that do it exceptionally badly, and there are many companies that don't really have a very good idea about what the basic tenets and principles are of communicating with their marketplace. So I think you'll find a whole range there.
Jim, in your experience then, what do you think the three big yeses are when it comes to marketing your business? And then the three big no's?
Well, I guess I think that the key elements that people need to look at and the key elements that people need to look at are, first of all, understanding what it is that they're selling. I think that a lot of companies, and many of our customers are technology companies, and technology companies can be a very good example of people who think that they're selling one thing, they think that they're selling a piece of technology, but actually what their customers are buying is something that's going to benefit their business.
Is this confusion between benefits and features and benefits, do you think?
It's frequently that confusion between features and benefits. And a lot of it comes down to communication. At the end of the day, selling is about establishing a conversation with someone. So first of all, you need to identify who that person is, and you then need to define how you're going to reach that person. But once you've reached the person, it's all about establishing a conversation with them. And a lot of people, a lot of very successful business people, and I would say that this is certainly very much the case in the technology space, frequently people have a very good understanding of their product, maybe not so much of their service, but of their product when it's a technology product, but they don't necessarily understand what the benefits are that product or service can deliver to a business. And those benefits can almost always be expressed by the buying business in three ways. I want something that's going to generate more revenue for me. I want something that's going to cut costs for me. I want something that's going to help me take risk out of my business. So what our role is, generally, or part of our role is to help the customer express and articulate their proposition in a way that addresses those benefits rather than a way that explains the features of their product or their service.
Do you think sometimes, though, that as a consultant as you are, I suppose, when you're going in, what's that old expression about consultants? There's somebody who comes into your business and tells you what you already know. It's a bit like sitting up there on the hill while you know, you've got the Indians down attacking the camp. the key thing then that you must come across when you go into businesses, it mustn't be so much you can identify what's going wrong. Surely it must be the difficult bit is actually making them do something about it.
Well, that certainly can be the case, and I guess the way that would manifest itself is that frequently companies will bring in a third-party organisation like ours to help them with their lead generation. Now, part of the process that we would go through in setting up and then delivering a program would be the importance of what you do after that program, because particularly if we're looking just at lead generation. At the end of a lead generation campaign, a company should be able to expect to have a number of things. Firstly, they would expect to have a list of leads, people that have said, I'm interested in buying this product or service. Secondly, they should have a list of people who've said, I might be interested in this, but not yet, not just now. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. It can be because they're going through a downsizing process just now. It could be because it's the wrong time of year. If it's the retail sector, they won't buy anything in December, for example, because they're focused on Christmas. It could be because they've just signed a contract with a new supplier. So the first thing that the customer would have at the end of a campaign would be a list of leads that they're going to follow up today. The second thing would be a list of people that should be followed up afterwards because they're interested, but they're not interested now. So they should be nurtured until a moment when it's appropriate for them to be followed up. And the third thing that they would get out of a campaign with a company like ours is valuable feedback about the marketplace, what's happening in the marketplace, information that they should be able to take and feed into their product or service development program. Frequently what happens is that people do the first thing. They take the leads and they rush off to talk to those leads and they forget about everything else. So going back to your question about do people pay attention to what we say, I would say that in the case of everyone who's in that relationship where there's an element of consultancy involved, they'll listen to part of what we have to say and they'll ignore part of what we have to say, typically, because that's the easy thing to do.
When you walk away then from a business that you've gone in there and you put these procedures in front of them, and obviously consultants just like yourself are doing this up and down the country, is it the fact that they don't have the skills to pick the phone up and to talk to the customer, to do the conversion, to actually do the close, all the calls to action? They're very good at the bit that they do within their business, which is maybe the technology or the design or the procurement, whatever it is. But the actual bit that they're no good at is, in fact, picking the phone up and going, do you want this?
That can often be the case because that element of establishing a connection with someone who may or may not respond positively can be very, very difficult for many people. So particularly if we're looking at establishing that contact face-to-face or by phone, for most of us, it can be quite difficult to go out and meet new people and present something that we want to sell to them, knowing that in many cases people are going to say, I don't want that. So there can certainly be an issue of the skills not being there, the willpower not being there, but more than anything else, Steve, like in any business, in your business or anyone else's business, the reality of life is that we're always dealing with 100 different things.
All at the same time.
All at the same time. So people's focus tends to be on the thing that's a big priority at the moment. And again, I'd come back to the point that I made earlier on. Lead generation is like any business process. And the way to get the most out of any business process is to sit down at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of a financial period and plan it in advance so that it becomes part of the sequence of activity that the company is going to undertake during the year. But the reality is that many companies don't do that.
What do we do now? I mean, we're going to talk quite a lot in detail about this, but give us a little bit of your history, your background, so that, I mean, you could have just come in here this evening. This isn't the case, by the way, but you could have come in here. You could be just a very good talker.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's the doing that's important. So, what's your background then?
So my background is a broad sales and marketing background. I spent about 20 years in corporate life working for people like the Axiall Group, Reed International, and ultimately the Financial Times.
So very diverse there.
Very diverse, so a range of different sectors. And I worked in international sales, so I've done business in 45 countries worldwide. I've set up businesses across Europe. I've set up and managed distributor networks across the world.
So was there a eureka moment in your career when you realised what was important? Or are you, and I think there are people like this who are just natural salespeople. They, just in the way they speak, the rhythms of their speech, and they're not frightened to go, do you want this? Are you one of them, or was it a eureka moment that came along one day and you said, do you know what? I can do this if I do this slightly differently.
I guess when you mention the eureka moment, so I'll talk about a eureka moment. I think I've always been someone who's found it easy to put my point of view over.
No.
My eureka moment came in a slightly different, at a slightly different juncture in my career, though. I'd spent 20 years working for large companies.
Yeah.
And I was at the Financial Times, and a new young managing director came in and decided that he wanted a different management team. And eventually I was the second last manager to be invited to leave. And so I accepted that invitation. And I was then offered the opportunity to go and interview for many jobs similar to the one that I had done. And I'd spent 20 years in international sales and sales management and as a sales director. And I thought, I don't want this job, I don't want this job, I don't want this job. And my eureka moment came on a platform in a tube station as the train came into the station, and I suddenly realised it's not that I don't want this job or that job. I don't want to work for these big companies anymore. And that became a real eureka moment in terms of Axiall, because my experience until then had been working for multinational companies. My experience subsequent to that has been to be involved in setting up 3 different companies, one of which was purchased by a German company. And finally, 8 years ago, setting up Axiall. So the eureka moment really for me was that, because my experience now encompasses working for major blue chip multinational companies, and it also involves working for one-man bands and working for small companies. And I think that that's really the perspective that I can bring to most businesses, that I know what it's like working in a big company, and I know what it's like working in a resource-limited small company. All right then, listen, we're going to talk a little bit more to Jim in just a few moments' time. Should be a really interesting hour. In fact, we probably need 2 hours, in fact, the way things are going at the moment. It is all about generating leads. It's about finding brand new business. Okay, the economy is coming out of what was a cash-strapped environment. Things are getting better. The employment numbers, they're going down, which is a really fantastic news. But how can somebody like Jim fit in with your organisation? How can you generate those leads? How can you indeed find brand new business? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in more detail. But first of all, let's have a look back at what happened last week on the programme, because another part of your marketing campaign has got to be the whole world of PR. PR and marketing, they go hand in hand. And last week we had Wigwam PR in the studio telling us what you should be considering when it comes to getting the right PR and generating more sales and leads for your business. This week's guests are Vanessa Green and Fiona Butler of Wigwam PR.
I think the first mistake is not recognising where the story is. So we often have clients who come to us and tell us about great news. That might be internal news for their company. It might not be what the outside world wants to hear about. And when talking to them and hearing about their business, we suddenly find out all sorts of information that really does make good PR. So the first bit is identifying the right story, which is the most crucial part.
So the main idea is that at Wigwam we are a senior team, so it's really key that we understand our client's business. So that's sort of where we start off, with a business knowledge and experience to really understand what needs to be done for them. And it's a bespoke programme for each client. It normally encompasses ranging from sort of writing to award entries to speaker opportunities. So there's a whole programme all put together, but the key thing is really understanding their business objectives and goals, where they want to go, and making a programme that suits that is realistic, on message, and making sure that everyone's behind it.
Again, it's a very bespoke service, so we will really look at what a client may need and also what the impact of that may be. So there is no point in just promoting a CEO or somebody senior in the organisation if they've got such a strong personality but they're not backing up that with any information about the brand, the products, because at the end of the day, PR is helping them to grow as a company and to sell their services and products.
And so sometimes we have to sit with people who are very excited about the technology and say, what we need is the business benefits here. What we don't need to know is from the bottom up how this actually works. What are the benefits that a customer can buy into here? How's it going to give them some business advantage? And really keep on that focus. We all buy products for a benefit.
What we need to do first of all is find out which press to target, so where their audience is. So for Nigel, he started off wanting very local coverage, and that's a really nice local story and innovative local business. Budgets are tight these days, so you've got to make the money work really hard, so be very focused and targeted. And it's amazing really, we've had stories which have been in the Surrey Advertiser and the Financial Times, and we've had more impact and more results from the Surrey Advertiser, although like you say, the vanity was, wow, you've been in the FT. And I think that's one thing that we're very good at looking at is where do you actually want the results? Because it's easy just to go and get reams of coverage. What you really want to focus is the impact on the business.
Absolutely, and across the board on your communications, PR is sort of the cornerstone where the messaging is developed, the strategy is developed, and I think it is just that judgment call on any communication, on any channel that goes out. It needs to be consistent with the core objectives of the business.
Make sure you know the reasons for doing PR. What do you want to get out of it? What messages do you want to convey? And who do you want to get those messages to?
I'd say that PR can help you really understand your messaging and how you sit against your competitors. So if you do go down the route of meeting with a PR company, make sure that you feel slightly interrogated by that company. They should know all about you, really understand what your ambitions are and help you hone your messaging. If you're doing PR yourself, make sure you really understand the process of writing a press release, understand what a key message is, and don't be afraid to use it. It's really important that the wider world knows about what you're doing as an organisation, and therefore the sales will hopefully follow.
You're watching Business Connections Live. Jim McLaughlin, the Managing Director of Axiall, as in coaxial, talking about generating leads and finding brand new business. He's with us this evening. By the way, later on in the programme, we're going to be showing you some of the winners of and some of the other entries as well to Young Enterprise. They had the Young Enterprise North Surrey Half-Year Festival. That was at Merrill Lynch. We took one of our cameras along there. There's going to be a full programme, incidentally, concerning Young Enterprise in the nearest hint of, Young Enterprise in the merest hint of time. And we're also going to be filming at the North Surrey Finals at the Procter & Gamble on the 26th of March. Also, now this is quite exciting, on the 5th of March we're going to be joined in the studio by Louise Punter from Surrey Chambers of Commerce, together with input from Bristol, Sussex, Hertfordshire Chambers, and they're going to be doing that all via Google Hangout. We can't wait for that. And we've got Brad Burton on the 2nd of April, one of the UK's foremost motivational speakers. He's going to be joining us here live on the programme on the 2nd of April. Incidentally, if you're watching this on YouTube at the moment, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much indeed to the channel. Or if you're watching this on businessconnectionslive.com, then don't forget to pick up your free copy of 14 great tips and hints, great techniques to improve the responsiveness of your YouTube videos that you produce for your business. It's free to get your hands on it. All you got to do is give us your email address so that we can get in contact with you at a later date. No pressure. Just go to the website. That's businessconnectionslive.com. As I said, with me this evening, Jim McLaughlin. He's the Managing Director of Axiall, as in coaxial. Lovely. So we're going to work our way through some of the processes that a business needs to do. And I suppose probably one of the most important things is making certain that as a business owner you define your objectives and you understand really what you want to get out of what you're doing with your marketing.
Absolutely.
It seems, Jim, so absolutely fundamental that you need to actually sit back for a moment and think about what you're doing. Why don't companies do this?
I think, Steve, it's, as we discussed earlier on, it's competing priorities. There are 100 different things that people have to think about. And I think it's also that people tend to do what they're most comfortable with. Sales and marketing is really all about communications. And not everyone is a natural communicator. And people who aren't natural communicators, well, as I say, people tend to want to do what they're comfortable with. If they don't communicate well, it can be quite difficult to sit down and define the objectives for what's essentially a marketing campaign, which is about communication, if communication is not one of my skills.
But I mean, how do you teach somebody to do that? How do you actually inform them? Is it that you set the systems up to do it so that when you walk away, it'll actually all continue after you? Or is it an education process that you've got to go through with the small business owner to make certain they understand why they must be clear with their objectives?
I think it's very much a process. And I think it's a process, and it's something that can be learned. And as with every skill, different people will learn. Different people will be able to adopt a skill to different levels of proficiency. So some people are natural communicators, and these things will come naturally to them and easily to them. And other people will shy away from them because they're more comfortable sat in front of a screen or working with a screwdriver. That's what they know how to do. And actually communicating with people and articulating their thoughts isn't necessarily one of their strengths.
Do you think people do really understand what they should be focusing on when it comes to getting the message out there? First of all, I suppose, do they understand the profile, the demographic, I suppose it'd be called, of their customer, and what the hot buttons are going to be for the customer? Do you think they get that sometimes? I mean, we keep talking about it. I suppose what we're doing is we're beating around the bush a wee bit, aren't we? Because there are businesses out there that would rather pick up their screwdriver and be screwing things, building things, painting things, making things. But the most important thing is to get on the telephone, identify your customer, and then actually talk to them, so that they may purchase something from you.
Well, I think that's true, but I think that before you think about getting onto the telephone or sending out an email or sending out any form of communication, it's absolutely vital to sit down and understand, firstly, who are the people that I need to speak to? Where are those people? What kind of people are they? So the first thing that any organisation should be doing is looking at understanding and segmenting its marketplace. And by segmenting its marketplace, I mean looking at, where are my customers? Are my customers worldwide? Are they across Europe? Are they in the UK? Are they in the Southeast? Are they in London? Are they in Chelsea? Because different businesses have different geographic targets. So that's the first thing that they should understand. And most people will understand that at a fairly deep level, but they won't necessarily have articulated it. Then they need to think about, what type of organisation is my client, because we're talking about the business to business environment rather than business to consumer. So what type of business is likely to be my client? Is it a public sector organisation? Is it a private sector organisation? Then if it's public sector organisation, is it in the area of health? Is it in the area of emergency services? Is it in the area of local government or national government, or one of the hundreds of quangos that are out there? If it's private sector, what sectors are they involved in? Are they involved in retail? Are they involved in manufacturing? So all of those things are important. Then, having identified those things, they should really be thinking, what size of organisation is my ideal client? Do I want to talk to small organisations, medium-sized organisations, or large organisations?
Well, let's hone it down a little bit, because what we're talking there is very generalistic, and I suppose a lot of people, when they're sitting down thinking about their business at the end of the day, will go, yes, I'd like That's the kind of customer I would like to have. That's the kind of size, that's the kind of turnover I would like my customer to have. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty of creating a list, I mean, for instance, there's a lot of, they say the list within a business is probably the single most valuable asset a business will have.
Absolutely.
How do you create that list? If you're a small to medium scale enterprise, we met you at a networking event. Those guys that were in that room on that morning, how do they create that list? They've identified the kind of clients they'd like, rich ones that want their products, that have money. But how do they really focus on that list? What do they do? What's the process they go through?
The process that they should be going through is looking at, again, they've now identified this is the marketplace. This is the marketplace that I'm addressing.
Well, let's take an industry. Your background is
technology.
So I've put together a technology kind of product that I've got at the moment, and I've identified that it's a small to medium scale kind of business that needs my technology product. How would I go about creating that list of contacts? What would I do?
There's various ways that you can do that. So one of them is you can go and purchase a list. So you could sit down and specify the types of organisation that you want and go to a company that puts lists together. And then you would need to tell that company, you would need to answer the questions that I raised earlier on.
So
what's the geography that I'm addressing? What are the market sectors that I'm addressing? What size of organisation am I addressing? Within those organisations, who are the individuals that I want to speak to? Do I want to speak to a finance person, an IT person, an HR person, a marketing person, a sales person? So you would.
Who's the best, by the way, in your honest opinion? Who is the right person to talk to in a business?
There isn't a right person. It depends on the product or service that you're selling. And for example, if you're selling an accountancy system, ultimately the person that will make the decision on that is the financial director. But the financial director probably won't want to speak to you. So you'll want to speak to a management accountant or someone who works within the finance function and establish a dialogue with them. And when you've then established that they may be interested in the product or the service or the system that you sell, then that person will be an ambassador for you to reach the finance director, who you will have to speak to because you'll have to persuade that person. But you won't necessarily want to go and establish a dialogue with that person immediately, because a finance director is frequently not going to be interested in taking calls from someone who wants to sell something to him, because he or she will be receiving that type of communication every hour of their working day.
So what do you do in that circumstance then? Is it very much a numbers game? As long as you've got a thick skin, you sit there on the telephone and you dial out and you dial out, and eventually you will get through to the kind of person you need to be talking to a decision maker, and they will go, yep, I'm your 100th call, I'll buy what you're selling. Is it just a numbers game?
To a certain extent, it's a numbers game, but the absolutely key element there is making sure that you're not starting with a number that's like 1 million, that you're starting with a number that's focused and targeted, that's like 100. So that's why it's important to start to define who your target market is. And increasingly to use, I mentioned the fact that you'd go out and buy a list, but there are many, many other ways that you would seek to engage with people to build your list, other than buying people's names. So you would want to use your website as a way of gathering information on people who could be interested.
Well, I suppose that to a certain extent is what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
We're building a list by giving something for nothing, isn't
Exactly.
it? So we're hoping that you're interested in the programs that we do. We're hoping that you're interested in the experts that we have on the program, and that you find their knowledge useful for you in your business. But we'd like to get in contact with you. And when I say get in contact, just to know you're there. So by filling in the form on our website, and then what you do is you're actually going to be picking up something for free from us, which is these 40 great techniques on how to raise the awareness of your YouTube's films that you put up online. And it's techniques like that you want to be using, isn't it?
Exactly.
Now, you were talking about lists there a second ago. A lot of people hear about lists, but are they expensive?
Well, that depends, and it depends how focused you want that list to be. So, and it also depends on the value of the product and the service that you're selling. So you could buy a list where every name on that list might cost you 30 pence. But equally, if you want to buy a list that you're confident will contain the people that you want to speak to, you might have to pay £1 or £2 or £5 for every name on that list. But I wouldn't want to get too bogged down in just in lists and lists that you can purchase, because what's very important for every organisation to understand is the various ways that they can interact and engage with potential clients and attract those people to them, so that when they do go out to speak to people, there's a high probability that those people will want to have that conversation.
Well, let's look then at the different strategies, the different ways to market then that we've got. Interestingly, you know, when you're talking lists as well, and we'll go off list, we've talked about it for a while, but of course there's other ways of getting those contact names, isn't there? There's the likes of LinkedIn and things like that, which is very, very powerful, I think, out there. So what would be your recommendations?
Well, I think LinkedIn is an absolutely key area. So what we find increasingly is where we used to go out and purchase lists regularly for people, now much more frequently we'll use our researchers, we'll sit down with a client and we'll go through that process of identifying a profile of people, and we'll then go out and we'll search the web, and particularly looking at social networking sites like LinkedIn, and in a business-to-business environment, LinkedIn is the premium site. That's where most of the people that our customers will want to speak to are going to be found. So rather than actually buying a list, we would research the names of people that are likely to be interested in the product or service.
Do you think the bubbles burst a bit on social media, or is it we're now beginning to see the emergence of a leading social media site for business? I mean, LinkedIn has always been a recruitment site, it's always been a business-to-business site. Is that one going to stay now, and that's going to be the market leader, and, you know, maybe a little bit of Twitter, not so much of Facebook, perhaps because they reckon that one's peaked, don't they? I mean, is social media, has the bubble burst, do you think?
Absolutely not. It's absolutely not burst. I think that social media will become increasingly important, because what becomes more and more important is people establishing communities and dialogues with those communities that add value for those people. And the way to reach those people can often be through social media channels. And those social media channels can be forums on LinkedIn. It could be via Facebook, but my experience in the sectors that we work with is that Facebook is
a different area, isn't it?
Twitter can be very important, but not for the kind of thing that we're talking about putting together lists. What Twitter can be very important for is establishing a presence in the marketplace, demonstrating to people that you're a thought leader in your particular area, that you have interesting things to say, that they should be following you, and through following you, they are likely to have an interest in the product or service that you're selling in the
When you
marketplace.
suggest these kind of strategies, do you get resistance to them at all? Do people go, yeah, I've heard about social media, but it's not really for me?
I think there is frequently resistance, and the older the business person, the more likely they are to be resistant.
What are you trying to say?
Because us, we who are not in the first flush of youth, didn't grow up with social media sites. So many people who've been in business for 20 or 30 or 40 years aren't entirely comfortable with either the concept of social media or the dynamics of how it actually works. I think increasingly, though, people recognise that has to be a part of their marketing mix. It's not enough to have a message, and one of the phrases that we would use when we're looking at putting together campaigns is there's a difference between a spray and pray campaign and a rifle shot campaign. So you talked earlier on about throwing a message out there to thousands of people.
Yeah.
And in a business-to-business environment, that is rarely going to work. Really, what you really need to be doing is looking at defining a relatively small target marketplace, then putting together a proposition and a message that will resonate with those people, and then taking those messages to market through the channels that are most likely to reach people. And those channels may be through, it could be over the telephone, it could be by email, it could be by Twitter, it could be through forums and groups on LinkedIn, and it could be through Facebook as well.
What about networking, Jim? I mean, is that a way to get new customers? And is it dependent on the kind of business you're in? Because a lot of networking events you go to, it is the baker, the candlestick maker, and the inevitable accountant that's going to be there. And there are times I feel that when you go to some networking events, everybody is selling and nobody is buying. But I know some networking events are different. The 4N ones, for instance, seem to be completely different, in fact. They seem to be a fact that people are actually sharing experiences and they're opening up doors and they're allowing people to approach them. And there is the possibility to actually purchase from somebody else within the group.
Absolutely.
But do you think then that networking is being used properly? And do you have to go to the right networking event to make it work properly for your business?
Well, I think networking is part of the mix, just as buying lists and using social media and using the telephone and using email, it's all part of the mix. And I think it's always going to be about finding networking groups that work for you. So there are networking groups where it's the same people that meet every week,
yeah,
and they give a presentation and it's the same presentation, and for some people that works and for other people that doesn't work. And I guess that my interpretation of that would be typically for people in professional services who can network with each other, so for lawyers and accountants, etc., that type of networking group works fairly well. I think that for most of us in a commercial environment, a networking group is almost never going to be a place where we'll find a customer. The networking group is a place where we'll find someone who we may have things in common with, where our products and services have synergies, and it's through the relationships that we build with those people that we may find customers. Because ultimately, in business, it really always comes down to it's about people, and it's about conversations and dialogues, and it's about finding people that you feel comfortable with, because you're only going to do business with people that you feel comfortable with. So networking most definitely has its place, but like every other element of lead generation that we've talked about, it's not a panacea.
All right, so listen, we'll talk more about the whole aspect of generating those leads. Fascinating, actually, isn't it? Networking events all the way through to buying lists. It's all there, but I suppose what you've got to do is decide which one of those different options that you're going to take for your business. Or as Jim says, is it really just a mix of all of them? Is it a mix of, shall we say, going to networking events? Is it a mix of buying that list? Is it a mix of using social media in a proactive, efficient way to make absolutely certain that you are generating new leads? Incidentally, if you want some advice on how to use LinkedIn, we've got a fantastic program. It's the most watched one actually on the channel. It is Steve Mills is the gentleman's name, and it's all about generating leads using LinkedIn. It's a fascinating show. Just simply go to the website and you'll get more information there. It's a great show, actually. He's a terrific guy. Actually went on one of his courses for a day to listen more about him talking about how to use LinkedIn in business. Very, very powerful. All right, then let's talk about the youth of today, the young uns, the ones that are still at college and still in school. I tell you what, here's a fascinating insight into young enterprise. We spoke to Kevin Williams and a few of the different people who were involved, or the different young adults who were involved with young enterprise. We went down to one of their finals, in fact, a couple of weeks back. In fact, last Wednesday evening late we were there after the program. So I tell you what, check this out, Young Enterprise.
Right, well, we're coming to the pinnacle of the Young Enterprise Company program, where school teams set up their own companies and run their own businesses for about 9 months.
Well, we're Planet Enterprises, and we are from Solution School in Chertsey, on the news quite a bit. And what Planet is, Planet's basically an organiser which you base on your fridge to plan your week ahead.
So we're called Rephrase, and we started off making these That's So Fetch bags because we did some market research, and we found we went through some really popular movie quotes, and we found that the most popular one was That's So Fetch, and it's from a movie called Mean Girls. So then we tried to sell those, but then we realised that they weren't selling as well, and lots of people preferred personalised bags. So we ordered in some plain bags, and we had managed to get some iron-on paper, so you could print on anyone's, so anyone, whatever quote they wanted, we can get it on the paper and iron it on.
We are from Fallbrook School, Company 9. I'm Katie and I'm Vice Managing Director and Head of Marketing.
That sounds all very American, have a vice something or other, doesn't it?
It does.
Tell us about the product. What is it?
Okay, so the Paddy Board, it's this tool for one-on-one help for people with learning difficulties who need that extra support. This offers them that because they can work one-on-one with the teacher, doing any sheet you want. We've got numeracy, English, comprehension sheets all there to help children, and we've put them in cream because market research has shown us that dyslexics respond better to cream sheets rather than white.
We have a big final coming up, the area final in March, and tonight is the dry run for that. We've got 19 school companies present. They're displaying their wares. They're going to be interviewed by judges, and they're going to compete for prizes for best presented company, what they look like, how well they know their business, what their trade stand, their shop front looks like, for innovation in either product or marketing or IT or whatever. And also for best financial management. So there are judges going around from Procter & Gamble, from Merrill Lynch, and from Gavin Jones as we speak, interviewing the companies, and hopefully we'll see who wins the prizes. £500 worth of prizes tonight, together with the best ad.
Our name is Synergy Enterprises, and we're from Collingwood College, and our product is custom USB sticks for companies.
Yeah, it's been quite surprising. It's a lot more work than we thought it'd be, and there's a lot more challenges in terms of logistics and getting people to work to a deadline, which has been a bit of a problem.
Well, I think any business experience is great. I'd quite like to go into engineering, and many engineers work freelance, so it's quite nice to get an idea of what it's like to kind of work in a small team, a small company.
Probably that businesses aren't as easy as they seem, and finding the product is probably the hardest thing to do.
We found that, like in the real world, you're not going to necessarily get along with everyone's ideas and opinions, and we're just learning you have to compromise and work together as a team to be the best you can be.
Lessons learned, less arguing in company meetings, I think. We need to work together more as a team, but it really has been an enjoyable experience on the whole, I think.
I think some people could do more, but everyone does do their parts in the company, so it's a good team working exercise, really.
And tell us a little bit about the calibre this year. You were surprised, you were telling me earlier on that once again it's just another year that is truly outstanding.
They seem to get better from year to year, I guess, as schools get more experience running the company program. The younger students see the older students doing it, and they learn from it, and they think they can do better than them. And so every year it seems to get better and better. This is the biggest year we've ever had. We have 22 companies operating just in a narrow strip of North Surrey, and to my amazement, this is now January. No, it's February. And we still have them all operating. Usually a few of them hit the wall around about Christmas time, but they're all still operating.
Well, it's a fantastic evening. We're really looking forward to getting out there. We're looking forward to seeing the ads as well. If there was one thing that we needed to remember about the whole night, what would it be, do you think?
That these kids are inspirational.
And we're looking forward to going back to the regional finals on that as well in a couple of weeks' time at Procter & Gamble's. That's going to be a lot of fun too. And I think the thing that is the most amazing, and I'm sure Jim would agree with me on this, is that young entrepreneurs today are so switched on. The other thing that's fascinating is that they learn so quickly as well. They identify a problem and then they respond to it. And you talk to all these young people, and what they're saying is, do you know what, we're using social media to promote, to sell. They've really got it at the moment. And what are they, 17, 18 years old? Well, 16, 17 years old. So they're really on the button. They are as sharp as tacks. And it was a fantastic evening that we spent with them in Camberley the other week. So congratulations to all the different entrants on that particular evening. It was a great night, and well done to the winners. I'll tell you who the winners are before the end of the programme. Let's go back to Jim McLaughlin and Axiall, as in coaxial. I like that. It's a good way to remember it. But Axiall, fantastic site. Fantastic opportunity for you as well to maybe start looking at ways that you can actually market your business. Jim, just show us around the site a little bit. We've got it on the screen there at the moment. And see here, I suppose the most important thing about the site is going to be your clients, isn't it?
Exactly.
So let's just click on that particular link and
Exactly.
let's take us there. Oh no, it's a Mac, Jim, and that could mean all sorts of things, you know. I've just been told Macs are great. They are. Now this is incredible because that is a list of your particular customers. How important do you think it is that any business actually does show who they're already talking to? Because, I mean, that is a heck of a list actually you got down there, isn't it?
I think that this is potentially the most powerful tool that any company has. Each of those logos has a story behind it. So there's a customer reference behind it, just a brief customer reference that says...
Which one would you like me to click?
You can click on any of them.
Shall we click on this, the first one? Why not? One-to-one systems. We'll have a click on that.
Which is a logistics company.
Right.
And all of our references say the same thing. It says this is the client, this is what they do, this is what they wanted to achieve, and then we've got a quote from the client saying this is what Axiall did for us and they did a great job for us.
Let's just see what it says here. Chris Sassoon, Managing Director, One-to-One Systems, said, we asked Axiall to set up meetings for us and to produce a set of case studies to support our marketing activity. They have now completed 2 phases of lead generation, which have delivered an excellent pipeline of leads, which we are pursuing and are confident of converting. I mean, that is praise indeed, isn't it? But once again, it is just following the processes that you actually said at the very beginning of this. It's just working your way through, defining your objectives and understanding what can be achieved, segmenting your market and identifying who you want to focus on, defining a list of targets and then choosing the right and the appropriate channels to actually deliver your message.
Absolutely.
Do you think people, though, once they've done all of that, Jim, do you think that they don't get the proposition right sometimes?
Well, that's really the next step. So the next step is, having defined all of those things, you need to be sure that your proposition and your messaging around that proposition are articulated in a way that's appropriate to that target market. Because most companies are likely to have more than one target market, and there's no point in just having a single message that you want to fit all. If you've got a campaign, for example, that's around a new service or a new product, you want to make sure that the messaging that you're taking out there is appropriate to the person you're speaking to. So, for example, if you're selling a technology proposition into another company, the people that are likely to be involved in that purchase will be IT people and finance people. Well, the message that you want to give to the IT people will be entirely different to the message you want to give to the finance people. The IT people will want to understand how powerful is this solution, what will be the difficulties of integrating it, how long will it take me to integrate it, how much will it cost me to train my people. The financial guys, what they'll want to know is, what's my return on investment? How quickly will I get my money back on this, and what benefit will it deliver to my company? So getting that messaging right is absolutely crucial.
How often do you find clients who still go out with a single message, one message fits all in their mind's eye?
I would say that we do frequently. And what I would say is that one of the benefits that a company like ours can bring to companies is that our business is about articulating messages. It's about understanding the benefits that can be delivered, and I think that it can frequently be of value to a company to have an external person who doesn't have an investment in a particular product or service from a particular angle. Our role is to stand in the shoes of the potential customer and try and articulate the message and the proposition in language that will be meaningful to that potential customer and will resonate with them. And that's frequently easier to do for someone who is not intimately involved with a product or service.
Is it difficult for you as a consultant or a business coming into another business to actually tell managing directors, sales and marketing directors, sales managers what they need to be doing? I mean, do you sometimes meet resistance from them?
I think that anyone who's going into someone else's business, part of the role is to be diplomatic.
You don't go in there and go, nah, you don't want to do it like that.
Seldom. Only if I don't want that company's business, Steve. Only if I don't want that company's business. So frequently, as in any human communication, my job is to articulate my message in a way that will resonate with my client. But if I believe that as is sometimes the case with technology companies, that the messaging that they have is not going to resonate with their potential customers, it's my job to tell them that, and to tell them why, and to tell them what they can do to change that messaging. So I have to sell the messaging that I think will work to them, because the last thing I want to do is to take their money and go off and deliver a campaign that doesn't deliver results. So one of the principles of our business is, if you want to get the most out of the investment that you're making in this business development or lead generation campaign, we need to work together.
Let's talk just finally then a little bit about the real wrap on that then, because do you think companies, when they're on the phone, do they overpromise and underdeliver, you think, some of the time? Do you think they actually have everything that they promise you when they pick the phone up and go, boy, you need one of these? Is that a problem, that they don't recognise that they shouldn't overpromise?
Well, all I would say is that anyone who has a background in sales and any understanding of human psychology will know that you can overpromise and underdeliver once. So you can take that order, but you won't take another order. You're highly unlikely to take another order if you work on that basis. And I think that most people in sales and marketing understand that. But there's another element that comes into play, which is that salespeople will have targets. And frequently, as in the gentlemen and ladies who've sold us PPI insurance for the banks, they're not thinking about what's good for their client. They're thinking about, how do I hit my target at the end of the quarter? How do I ensure that I get my £2 million bonus? And the answer to that may be that they make the sale, but maybe the comeback on that is that their bank now has a £300 million fine to pay.
So really make certain that you can deliver on your promises and
always,
never overstep that mark.
Always.
Jim, I'm going to ask you in a few moments' time just to give us, maybe, because we're nearly at the end of the hour, it flies by, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
I'm going to ask you to really give us, from top to tail, a summary of what we've talked about, the key things to remember. If people want to talk to you, where they can contact you as well, we're going to do that in just a few moments' time. But before that, let's have a look at what's been happening in the world of business over the last 7 days with this week's news on Business Connections Live. Here's Linda Bazant.
This is Business Connections Live with the business news for Wednesday, the 19th of February 2014. The number of people out of work in the UK fell by 125,000 in the 3 months to December, according to the latest figures. The rate of unemployment now stands at 7%. The Office for National Statistics also said the number of people claiming job seekers allowance last month fell by 27,600 to 1.22 million. Meanwhile, average earnings increased by 1.1% in the year to December, a 0.2% increase on the previous month. The recent fast growth in employment is likely to slow in the coming months, the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development has said. It surveyed 1,000 employers and found just over half of firms, 54%, said they would be increasing payrolls, down from 65% last year. 1 in 5 said they would shed workers in the first 3 months of this year. The UK's inflation rate, as measured by the Consumer Prices Index, fell to 1.9% in January. The rate fell below the Bank of England's 2% target for the first time in more than 4 years. The fall is likely to underline the Bank of England's message that there is no rush to raise interest rates. Prime Minister David Cameron tweeted that the figures supported the government's economic strategy, and today's fall in inflation is more evidence our long-term economic plan is working. We want to ensure a secure future for hard-working people. There should be a new business rate system for shops based on energy use, the retailing body, the British Retail Consortium, has said. The BRC suggests replacing the current system with a tax based on measures such as energy usage and job creation. Advances in these areas could result in a reduction in the rates bill. Some business groups have complained for some time that the rate system discourages investment and needs modernising. A Treasury spokeswoman said, "We welcome the BRC's contribution to the discussion and will consider their options on administrative reform as part of our review. Applications for the new .london domain suffix will be open from April 29th. London and Partners, the city's promotional body, said London-based businesses, organisations and individuals will get first preference for the new domain names. It said there would be a 3-month application period during which companies or individuals holding trademark registration would have priority preference over contested names. A survey of 1,000 small businesses in London by YouGov suggested more than a quarter would register their companies using the new system. It said that proportionally it would be equivalent to more than 200,000 firms likely to seek registration. And if you have any comments or views on these or any other stories, please contact us on all social media or email studio@businessconnectionslive.com.
And my thanks, of course, there to Linda Bazant with this week's Look at the News. A fascinating week as well in the news, for that matter. Lots going on. By the way, if you have been involved in any of the floods up and down the UK over the past 7 days, our hearts are with you. It's hit a few of the boys and girls around here over the last week or so. We've all been very close to the Chertsey sausage, which you may have seen on the news. I'll tell you what, that's a real mouthful. If only we had a picture of that right now, quite frankly. Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio.
And a pleasure.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, because I just get the feeling. Would you come back again on the programme?
I would be delighted to.
Because I think there's so much knowledge and so much information there, and I think small to medium scale enterprises, small to medium scale businesses don't really have that opportunity to get this kind of information. And while I know there's this kind of feeling that, for instance, we're giving it for nothing. But hopefully a few of them will pick the phone up afterwards and go, actually, we hear what you're saying, let's have a bit of a chat so that we can explore this a little bit further.
Nothing would make me happier.
I'm sure, nothing would, or me for that matter, as it turns out. What I'd like Jim to do right now, we do this every week as well, it's the equivalent to a networking event perfect pitch.
Absolutely.
Would like you just to tell us, summarise what we've talked about, give it to us in a bit of a nutshell really about your business and about what businesses should be doing when it comes to generating new sales and leads.
Okay.
All right then, so straight down number 3, Jim, that's your camera. Take it away whenever you're ready.
So I'll put this as succinctly as I can. I think that it's very important for every business that wants to get the most out of its investment in business development and lead generation to make lead generation part of an annual marketing plan. Whether you do that in-house or whether you engage a company like Axiall, make sure that there is a plan in place and you're going to follow that plan rather than just doing something ad hoc and just to hit a target at the end of the quarter. That's not the best way to get the most out of your investment. The second point I would make is to remember that lead generation is about establishing a conversation. It's all about business conversations, and to do that effectively, it's important to understand who you're talking to and speak to those people in language that resonates with them. Make sure that your messaging is about the benefits to them. It's not about your product and service, it's about the benefits that it can deliver to their business. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, and this comes back to a point that Steve raised about speaking to thousands of people. It's not about speaking to thousands of people. As in most things in business, it's all about focus. So understanding what you want to do and focusing down so that the smallest number of conversations that you can have lead to the maximum output. If you'd like to discuss any of this with me, I'd be more than happy. You can reach us in a number of ways through our website, which is at Axiall, that's AXIALL.UK.com. And if you go to the Contact tab, you can send me an email from there. You can send me an email at jim@axiall.uk.com, and you can reach me on the phone at 07799 076 980. That's 07799 076 980. Thank you very much.
Absolutely fantastic. And I hope you found it useful this evening as well, for that matter, actually finding out what we've been talking about. It is all about generating brand new business for your company. That's what this is all about. Why are you in business if you don't want to make money? Be successful. And that's what people like Jim are all about. You may have skills in a different area. You may not recognize truly the right way to go out there, to market, to promote, and to get your message out there to your customers. It really is as simple and straightforward as just getting on the telephones, identifying what you need to do, identifying the proposition, identifying who you're going to be talking to. It really is as simple and straightforward that. And if you want help for it, well, Jim McLaughlin is the man to give a call on. That number you'll find also on the website below as well. Now, don't forget, we've got Brad Burton. You're a fan of Brad's, aren't you?
I'm a big fan of Brad's.
He is a terrific guy. He's going to be on the programme on the 2nd of April. We're looking forward to having him on the show. That will be a show not to miss. If you're part of the 4 networking group of networking events that happen up and down the country, make certain you're here. Your leader is going to be on the air. That's the 2nd of April. Brad Burton, right here live on Business Connections Live. We may even open the telephone lines and the Skype lines as well, so that you can get messages into him. Listen, from all the team here this evening, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Business Connections Live. We've got a great show lined up for you next week. On the 5th of March, incidentally, we've got Louise Punter from the Surrey Chambers of Commerce, together with input from Bristol, Sussex, Hertfordshire Chambers, and they're all going to be on Google Hangout already. We can't wait for that. Listen, have yourself an absolutely fantastic week. We'll catch you again next week at 7 on Business Connections Live.